Good morning, Gearheads. Welcome to Speed City F1. We just watched a fantastic qualifying in Abu Dhabi. And gentlemen, what a great way to finish the 2024 season with a qualifying like that. Just typifies everything. This is Jon Massengale. I got Jonathan Green and Bob Varsha. I'll start with you, Mr. Varsha. You were out not with us last week, not feeling good. How are you feeling, buddy?
Excuse me, what was the question? Yeah, I'm a lot better. Jonathan, how are you? I'm afraid I
I'm out of it too, thankfully. But I had a couple of dodgy days.
Well, I'm sorry for that. I should have been more circumspect, but yeah, I'm a little bit better. I'm a little froggy, still sniffling a little bit, but the coughing is mainly gone, and I'm feeling good.
Well, good. What about you, Greenie? What do you think about this qualifying for the final one of the season?
Yeah, I feel for Hamilton. Jeez, I mean, what a way to finish off. I mean, 18th. That's not. I mean, both. In fact, Russell not great either. So I don't know where Mercedes disappeared to from a 1-2 a couple of weeks ago. No, good qualifying. McLaren doing everything they needed to do, and I think that puts them pretty much on pace to be where they need to be, especially with Leclerc's penalty. In fact, that was practice one. That was one of the biggest stories of the weekend, was that Leclerc Ferrari on the back foot right from the get-go.
Well, Bob Varsha, I was sitting there before we came on air. I was watching Zach Brown slap shoulders and everything, and I said, "Hold on, buddy, you haven't quite done it." But
well,
it's pretty inevitable, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a fait accompli at this point. Even if Carlos Sainz can take points over either of the drivers from McLaren, Charles Leclerc having to come from the back is just not going to get it done. 21 points between McLaren and Ferrari. I think it's a done deal. Now it's going to be interesting to see how much damage all of the four drivers from those two teams can do. Excuse me.
So, hey, Jonathan, what do you think about if you're in the Ferrari garage? Do you make that decision to start from the pit lane and do every adjustment and replace every part if you're Ferrari?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, you've got to play to your tools, right? So one tool, you say, is you can start from pit lane and work on the car. I don't think there's anything to lose. I mean, I know there's that dinky kind of way onto the grid from pit lane, but no, probably yes. I guess you'd have to weigh it up. I don't know what the deltas are in terms of how much time you're going to lose, or how hard it is to catch up on that first lap. But either way, he's going to be at the back, and it might also lead to a strategy whereby he goes on a different tire strategy than the rest of the field in a view to staying out.
Well, we got to keep going down this list because the Hulk was on provisional pole, guys. That was awesome.
But they looked good all weekend, the Haas.
Yeah. Yeah, but Bob, what do you think? I mean, what did he end up fourth? I mean,
Bob's talking, but he's muted.
Oh, Bob's muted. Okay. Well, we got Chris Medland. He's not muted, so I'll ask Chris the same question. We're talking about the Hulk, Chris. What do you think, man? Wow.
It was a brilliant lap from him. I mean, that session was so competitive, wasn't it? Look at how many drivers were jumping to the top at different times, I think, catching each other out. The one caveat, I hate doing this, but Hulkenberg is under investigation. He overtook someone. It was Q1, overtook someone in the pit exit road and got noted for that straight away. They said they'd investigate it after the session. And we are now after the session. So he is heading to the stewards in half an hour. And if I'm honest, I think I try not to preempt too many penalties or non-penalties. I feel like that one might be a reprimand kind of zone rather than a grid penalty sort of zone. So fingers crossed that's how that one plays out. But I'll keep an eye on it. I just don't think we'll get an actual decision before we're off air tonight. So that'll be one that keep an eye on the socials and we'll let you know how that plays out.
Well, that's interesting, given what Franco Colapinto did when Sergio Perez was late reacting to the green light in Qatar. And as I watched everybody coming out for those critical final runs, going so slowly, trying to create a gap in traffic, I thought, well, why don't I just drive around this guy ahead of me? I realized there was a safety factor involved, but It's a nice wide pit lane, and it's what Colapinto did, albeit under race conditions previously.
So the difference here is because the pit and exit is a tunnel that goes under the track. So the way that it's so tight out of the pit exit, I think I'll have to, in fact, while we're on air, I'll go and find the race director's notes and see what the actual wording is to find out kind of why he would be pinged for that. Because you are right. You are in your rights in the exit. As long as you keep your car on the track, a wheel within the white line, you're within your rights to overtake anyone if you wish to, because technically you've now entered live racetrack.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, he went around him, not over him, so the tunnel, I would think, would come into effect, other than the narrowness of it. And as Martin Brundle mentioned during the Sky Show, we've been waiting for, well, actually, I guess it was Crofty, we've been waiting for 15 years now for someone to get sideways in that tunnel, and it never happened. So obviously the race director's notes do carry some water with the teams.
It's true. Hey, another great session for Pierre Gasly, Jonathan.
Yeah, again, he just keeps on rolling, doesn't he? He's been, to be honest, he's been my driver of the sort of last quarter of the championship. He has stood out as being, he's taken Alpine from nowhere to now a solid 6.
I know this season has just been fantastic, isn't it? It's like every week we don't know who's going to be the fastest. I love how all of us and everybody else predicts, well, this track is going to be the fastest for Ferrari or fastest for McLaren or Red Bull. And almost every week we're either a little bit off or way off because this season is just delivered like this all year.
I have to say, though, watching all the coverage, the amount of mentions of tiredness, illness, exhaustion, it doesn't bode well when your commentators are constantly either talking about themselves or, about the players in the field that are exhausted. This is way too long a year.
Well, I was just listening to David Coulthard, DC. He was saying the exact opposite. He was saying, I am ready to go. I don't feel like it's the 24th race. So.
That's because he spends most of his time getting pampered.
Right. And he's the one, right, who thinks Formula One is still unfinished business for him, spending so much time as the number 2 at McLaren. But whatever. I'm going to be watching that battle now between Haas and Alpine. For the life of me, and I'm changing subjects here, I really cannot understand, well, I can kind of understand why Mick Doohan is in for Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. I mean, poor Pierre Gasly, who, as Jonathan says, has just really been waving the flag for Alpine. Now he's got Hülkenberg in front of him from Haas and K-Mag behind him from Haas. They've got a 4-point lead over Haas for 6th in the championship and about $10 million worth of prize money. Why would you do that? Doohan's going to start at the back.
I'll just flag, it's Jack Doohan rather than Mick Doohan. You are not the first or last person to do that at all.
What did I say, Mick?
Yeah, I've done that a million times, I can promise you. I've written it out a number of times and I had to catch myself.
Well, I admire Mick for what he did. When Jack does something, I'll get his name right.
Well, what do you think, Greenie?
Yeah, no, I looked at that decision and thought, then I found out that Flavio was his manager, and I put all bets aside because that's a Flavio move, totally. And there's another point of this, which is a marketing point, which is the first race of next year is Australia, Jack Doohan, and actually getting Mick wrong. I mean, Bob's probably the only person that will back me up here, but we did the career of Mick Doohan, and his. He's a Jordan type figure in Australia. I mean, his era in motorcycle racing was just sublime, and his tenacity and his ability. He is a classic Australian sportsman. And if Jack's got an iota of any of Dad's genes, he's going to be so popular. So going into Australia now with a Grand Prix under his belt, and with the fact that everybody's chomping at the bit to see him, I think will be a huge fill up for the team. So I can see now what Flavio is thinking. Ocon's not doing anything. So yeah, it's a risk with the points, but it's not a risk long term.
Well, nitpick there. I wouldn't say Ocon's not doing anything. He was on the podium in Brazil just a few weeks ago. But I get your point, and I agree completely that even though Jack has better hair than his dad, what Nick did, 5 world championships, riding that monster of a Honda
with one leg.
Oh my God! Broke every bone in his body. Kept coming back. Just an astonishing sportsman, no question. And maybe Jack will follow in his footsteps. If he does in Formula One, that's going to be really exciting to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to put a negative spin on this too much, but I'm very cynical about this decision, having spoken to a few people on both sides, because I feel very much like, and look at the way this weekend's played out, that this opens up an opportunity if Alpine were looking to change their driver lineup next year. You put Jack in last minute, you give him a tough assignment. It is a track he's tested on, it's a track he knows. But for example, if you were looking at securing Franco Colapinto's services and finances, then you need to have some form of reasoning that says, well, actually, we were going to put Jack in, but we've decided against that. So I reckon there could be something there on that front where if he has a tough one on Sunday, who knows how the off-season plays out. I don't think our driver market is completely still. Let's put it that way. I think there's a lot of movement still to happen.
Who is Colapinto's agent? Who's his manager? Do you know, Chris?
Couldn't answer that one. No, don't know, actually. On that one, you put me on the spot. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, we don't think it's Flavio, huh?
No, it's not Flavio.
No, it's not. No, it's not a Briatore one. But he does have, severe backing that, we've seen that market just explode, haven't we, since he's been in the Williams? So I can see why he's attractive to teams, especially teams that, in a sense, are in a rebuilding phase or looking to, restart, I guess, is what Alpine are looking to do. And Gasly's been doing a brilliant job, it is true. But I'm fully with you, Bob, that I think, Ocon is the driver that, all things being equal, would have got the most out of that package this weekend. So something else I feel like might have been going on there.
Have they jumped the gun, though, on Colapinto? I mean, is he that great? I mean, yes, he's backing from South America. Fantastic. And obviously he's got the money behind him as well, and that's a big factor. But, have they got too enamored with him too quickly?
He's a rookie. He's a rookie, isn't he? Yeah, you've got to remember that Franco's a rookie, so he's going to make mistakes. I think it's the fact he didn't make mistakes early on and hit the ground running and performed so well that really fired his kind of stock up so high. Then we've actually seen what you expect from a rookie. Some good, some bad. But it has brought it down a few levels. So I think Red Bull were interested, and I feel like that's cooled as he's made more mistakes. He's not just been a dead cert, and that's why there's still a question mark over it. I'm not saying it will definitely happen next year, but I'm saying it could. And I feel like all the developments we've had over the last 7 days certainly lend themselves to allowing that possibility to come about if needed.
Chris, you know better than any of us that all the teams watch each other all the time. Is there a certain Red Bull effect in this Colapinto situation, as there has been in others? Everybody's watching what Red Bull does in terms of their driver selection and the guy. It's like watching the stands at a football game. Which big football college programs have scouts in the stand to watch the superstar quarterback in high school? Do people kind of follow Red Bull's attention as to who the next great driver is going to be?
I'd actually say no. I think Red Bull's one of those teams that gets its drivers early, gets them young, gets them into their driver program, and then takes them through. And they're less likely to just pluck someone from outside. In fact, doing that with Perez was, away from the norm, wasn't it? And that was meant to be if we can't make it work with an experienced driver who's proven in Formula One, then there's something not quite right with the way we've got the team balanced. So I am going to bring it back to that when other factors play out, I think, after this race weekend, that, Red Bull does not have it perfect to get the best out of 2 cars, I think, at the moment. But fortunately, they've got an absolute phenom in one of those cars, so that kind of papers over those cracks. I might have to cut off slightly here, though, because I'm going to try and doorstep Nico Hülkenberg if I can, who is heading out of the pen. And we said he's had a great day. He's being followed closely by Netflix cameras. They're everywhere, I can tell you. Yeah. So I say that because they were just recording me. So I'm going to see if I can grab him. Don't know if he's up for it. He's got his daughter already on his shoulder. So I think that's probably not going to be the time to interview him, actually. But fourth place is a cracking result for Nico. So I'm going to leave him to the family time, actually, because I do not think it's going to be appreciated if I stick a microphone in the face, not just Nico, but his young daughter as well.
Yeah.
Hey, they
All
got
right, Chris. Well, that's a good time here. Let's get a quick break in. You're listening to Speed City. We'll be back after these messages. All right, we're hot on YouTube now, and with McLaren 1-2, I'm going to scroll and look, and there he is, Andy P. He says, morning, guys. McLaren 1-2 in qualifying is a great way to start the day. Yeah, Andy P., I looked for you because I knew you would be excited.
Are you Andy P's manager by any chance?
I don't know. I just love his enthusiasm.
Let's try. Oh, Valtteri's coming to Sky. You know what I do? I tend to try and steal him after he's been on Sky.
I'd love to hear from Valtteri.
Yeah.
So would I.
Oh, yes.
Have you seen his new liquor commercial with his girlfriend Tiffany, the cyclist? They're promoting some kind of, limited batch whiskey. And they've got another typically silly and funny Valtteri commercial with his girlfriend, who doesn't sing very well, I have to say. But Valtteri is spot on. I mean, he's going to be the Peyton Manning of Formula One commentary.
That's good, yeah.
He's going to do every commercial.
Didn't quite have the resume that Peyton had, but still.
Well, he never picked up a football.
Ted Kravitz did a good interview with him.
In a Formula One car.
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm dealing with our show like the lightning round. I see so much to talk about. No.
Let's see who's else.
How long we got on the break, by the way, just so I know for when Valtteri's free, because I think I might grab him. Perfect. Also, Netflix were recording me that whole time I was talking Jack doing an Alpine. That was one of the most nerve-wracking 2 minutes of my life. They literally just stuck a boom mic on me. They obviously heard what was coming and just camera in my face, boom mic there, and I'm just stood in the middle of the paddock.
So you're not going to be a part of our plan to turn Speed City F1 into a television show? Is that what you're saying, Chris?
I'm saying that if there aren't changes at Alpine, then next year, if we can't get an Alpine driver, you know why.
Here we go.
Hello, I'm Jenny Gow from BBC F1. You are listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. We are enjoying what was a great final qualifying of the 2024 season. It just typified the season as we've had it all year long. Don't know who's going to be where. Hulkenberg in fourth, Valtteri Bottas in ninth, ahead of Sergio Perez. But before we go any further, I want to check with you, Chris. Chris, I know you're out there stalking a couple of people. Are you nearby? Anybody?
I love the way we say stalking every time on this show, and it's honestly, it's a fact. I think if this wasn't a Formula One paddock, I would be at risk of someone, handing me a piece of paper saying, "Do not do this." But I'm keeping close tabs. I'm shadowing. Let's use shadowing. Valtteri Bottas, who's just doing a TV interview, and then hopefully, I will grab him very shortly. I think that shortly might be right now, actually. So yeah, here he comes, and I'm just gonna quickly grab him. Valtteri, sorry to have you doing so much media, but you've had such a great day. P9 today. What a performance.
It was good day. Good session. One of my better laps, quality laps. And of course, really, really happy about it. And now in a good place for the race.
Well, you're going on to another TV channel, so I'll leave you to them.
Thank you.
Perfect.
I think we might grab him
Nicely
again.
done.
We might have to grab him after that because he was going to Channel 4 that were right behind Sky. And I was told I had him, and then I didn't. So
just tell him to wait, Chris. Just tell him that we were here first.
Yeah, none of those fancy pants TV guys has a better right than you to be talking to people.
Sadly, in a sense, they do. Cameras pay a lot more money than radio, don't they? So
yeah,
we love to be able to bring people access as much as we can, but there is, I wouldn't call it a hierarchy, but I appreciate I can linger and do this filling that we quite often do, and we can talk other topics, and the TV crews can't do that when you can see what's going on. So sadly that was a short and sweet for Valtteri, but I'll stay close in case I get him again, but I won't make him the only target because there's a lot of stories, as Bob was alluding to today.
Well, yeah, and we got to talk about Max Verstappen's his final corner on that one lap where basically he was, completely out of control, kept his foot in it, and then set the fastest lap. That was just crazy, Greeny.
I know. It's like, any other driver, I was thinking at the time, any other driver would have lost 3/10, 4/10, whatever. Whereas Max manages to recover it and still goes quick. So that kind of sums up his year, really, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, but just think about the geometry and and all of what just went on during that. Bob, were you watching that? That was crazy.
Oh, absolutely it was, which was delightful.
Yeah.
From my perspective. Yeah, great fun.
Yeah, that was amazing. What else in qualifying here, though? I did like what Carlos Sainz said in the post-qualifying interview. He said, he was asked about the emotion of his final race with Ferrari, and he said he's not even thinking about it. He said, I'm not even allowing myself to think about it because they're so focused on the constructors' battle and staying focused on what he had to do. I thought that was interesting. Maybe he'll give himself some time to think later in the weekend. But
think about this during the race, given where they qualified, 10th through 14th in the Drivers' Championship. Hülkenberg, Gasly, Tsunoda, Stroll, Ocon, all covered by 14 points.
Oh, wow.
And all those guys starting, within a stone's throw of each other on the grid. Yahoo. How about it?
Yeah.
Tell you what, I was thinking looking at it. We're talking about GM using potentially Ferrari power when they come in. Ferrari third, Haas fourth, Sauber ninth. I mean, obviously the engine it works in any chassis you want to throw it in.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Cadillac's got to be excited about watching all of that. Sergio Perez, I put in my notes about halfway through. I said, wow, Checo has his confidence up just in time with tongue in cheek. He was looking good and then gets out qualified by Sauber and then end up in 10th place. I know maybe you can talk to this, Chris, but the rumors are that this is all going to come to an end for Checo at Red Bull. We've heard for a couple of weeks now that it's going to be at the board meeting on Monday. Chris, any update on that?
Yeah, I'm aware that there's discussions already taking place actually between Red Bull and Checo's camp for the termination of his contract, essentially, or his future, and what would happen next. Now, nothing's been agreed, so there's a chance that they don't reach an agreement and someone has to pay someone off, or that shareholder meeting becomes even more crucial. But yeah, it's moved far beyond where it was in that sense. I'm just going to see who else we might be able to grab here.
Chris, while you're doing that, can I throw another question at you, or at least an observation? Reading between the lines with Horner saying, "Oh, well, he's a big boy, we'll leave it up to him." That was cryptic to say that there's got to be something in that contract where if he goes on his own volition, there is no, Red Bull not only probably save some money, but save face. And also that he has a contract, but it doesn't mean he drives the car. So he can uphold that contract and do what Ricciardo did and be an ambassador, but they're hoping he doesn't pick that up.
Yeah. I think basically, from what I've understood, Red Bull have dug themselves a bit of a hole. They're not in a position where they can really fully just say, right, that's what we're doing. We're in total control here. I think it might be too hardcore a contract in Checo's favour, which obviously was only signed earlier this year. So I do think, so that was me trying to see if I could get a second word with Valtteri Bottas, but it's not going well, so we're running elsewhere. I think it's essentially they're trying to find out what's the most cost-effective way of undoing the work they did earlier this year. And the thing is, for Checo, there's a number of interesting projects out there still if he were to want to be involved with them. So maybe not immediately, but someone did just mention GM and Cadillac. I mean, why not be talking to them? Why not potentially be involved in some way, shape, or form as it prepares? I certainly think a year out would do Checo the world of good because of the way things have been recently. So there's stuff that could be enticing to him, but at the same time, he's entitled to a lot from that Red Bull contract. It has been tough for him. And, as I say, I feel like he's at least justified in saying, look, when Red Bull brought me in, this was because I was the experienced, proven guy. He'd won a race in a Force India, and he'd been driving for Racing Point as it nearly went to the wall and getting really good results. He'd kind of proven himself, and yet still it didn't work at Red Bull, at least not consistently. So there's got to be a bit of that on the team too, at least some.
Yeah.
So he's kind of going, well, so I deserve the team to essentially pay me off. Like, you've signed that contract, you don't want me here anymore. You make the move. I'm not the one who wants to leave.
Yeah, and he could have spent most of this season talking to people, knowing that he was going to be in this position.
I don't think he needs to, really. I mean, as the closest thing to a lawyer in this group, we don't know what's in that contract.
No.
Does it include the fact that Perez has to be in the seat? What kind of cutouts are there for both Perez and Red Bull? I smell money. Perez has drawn a line in the sand this weekend. He reiterated, I'm going to be a Red Bull driver next year. Now he basically said, I'm going to be in the seat next year. That tells me he's telling Red Bull, I ain't budging. I've got a contract that says I get this much money. And you make an interesting point, Jonathan, because Perez, I think, still has some marketability up and down the pit lane. Like Franco Colapinto, Perez brings a lot of sponsor money with him. $17 million, I was told, at recent races. So this could get really ugly unless Red Bull decides to, discreetly pay him, get rid of him, whatever. He doesn't want to be an ambassador. He wants to be a driver. The contract says this much money is at play. And, right now, both sides seem to be dug in.
Yeah, and to me, it just doesn't bode well. Not bode well. It doesn't reflect well on the sport itself. Just all of this, right? I mean, it just doesn't feel good. And I have no sympathy for Red Bull if they did sign this contract, because it's not like Checo was doing great, and then they gave him a contract, and then he went downhill. He wasn't doing good before that.
True.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. It's not about performance anymore. Red Bull's had a nose full of Perez's underperformance. Granted, you can make the argument he hasn't been given the car that suits him to do what he wants to do. I mean, Jonathan, and I sat with some folks from Aston Martin in Las Vegas, and we said, what about Lance Stroll's future? I mean, what can you tell us? He said, well, we just freely admit we have not given him the car to do what we think he can do. So, even, the guy at the very back of the grid always has that argument. My car is not what it needs to be for me to perform. So.
Hey, I was just looking at the qualifying results here, and I was thinking about Checo and the rumor that Liam Lawson has now kind of moved into pole position for that seat. But look at the times in versus Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda. In Q1, they were 2 1,000ths of a second apart, and only a few hundredths off in Q2. And, I can't keep thinking about the fact that Yuki's just not ever considered for this seat, at least out here in the rumor mill.
No, it's a sad state of affairs, I think, that one, because he always does the job in the RB at least, and would be an exciting person to watch. He's going to get this test here on Tuesday during the tyre test and young driver test that's happening here in Abu Dhabi, where he will drive the Red Bull, but that's not a sign of anything. I mean, I think he'd have to do something incredible on that day for Red Bull to go, oh, wow, we've got to put him in, which is not actually a good situation to be in, because it might mean he tries a bit too hard. But I've really, sorry, I'm just trying to dodge some tyres. I've really been disappointed that he's not had a chance, but Red Bull clearly just are never going to put him in that car for a race seat. And I also then feel, and Johnny, you might back me up on this, because you want to see Liam Lawson do well, and you want to see him in the most competitive machinery. But let's look at the drivers that Red Bull last did this with after such a short amount of time. Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly. Did either of those end up well at Red Bull? No. Like, they weren't given the time to develop before going in that car. So they've had to rebuild their careers after that point. And that's what I fear for Lawson, is that because Checo's underperformed so much, and they won't give Yuki, who's got the experience now, a chance, Lawson's going to be fast-tracked when he should be given a bit more space and time to develop, in my opinion.
It's a really good point. The only thing I will say is, having sort of watched him from afar, as it were, and seen a quote. He was interviewed the other day, and he said, what you all forget is that I've been with Red Bull for 6 years, and it's a good point. So he has grown up in the shadow of Verstappen and Perez, and is more than versed on what he's about to walk into. And actually, if you look at it just that way, he's more suited than Tsunoda, I think, as a racing driver, because he just gives off a sense of being and confidence that says, give me a chance and I'll show you what I got.
Well, just look at the way he battled Fernando Alonso. I mean,
and Magnussen last time,
I mean, he was not shy about no matter who he's racing against, and he had nice battles against Lewis Hamilton too. I mean, so his confidence is high.
I don't think there's any question of Tsunoda's ability, but I think the fact that Honda, who are his big supporters, are going elsewhere, that probably takes a leg out from under Tsunoda. And there may even be, and I'm going to speak ugly here, there may be a certain amount of chauvinism here in play. Does Red Bull just not look kindly on a Japanese or Asian driver of any stripe?
I don't think it's nationality or anything like that. I think you were right there with the first point. It's the fact that he is a Honda driver, and it's personal because Honda are leaving. So they don't want to give Honda and their driver the chance to be in their car and be part of that setup. When actually, they're hurt by Honda leaving. It's cost them hundreds of millions of dollars because they've set up their own power unit department as a result. That's really, really annoyed Red Bull once they saw Honda were coming back.
All right, well, let's get our last break in real quick, guys.
Truth to me.
All right, we'll be back right after these messages. Sorry, guys, I had to get that break in. I didn't get an email back from Sirius this week on the Saturday show, so I don't know for sure if we had to get this last break in, so I just did it. We got plenty for tomorrow. Tons of live reads and everything for tomorrow.
Good. Last break? Are we on the last segment of the show?
Yeah, we started late because of the quality.
Hey, Chris, any sniff that Ford and its new relationship with Red Bull might have a driver that they want to put forward?
Not that I've heard, and every time I talk to Red Bull about that, about Ford, they make it clear from their point of view. I say off record, but it's not off record really. They're pretty open about it. That it's a sponsorship deal essentially. That there's some involvement on little bits of tech around kind of battery packs and energy stores, but generally it's a sponsorship deal. So it's who knows, that might evolve, but for now, no, I don't think they've got that sway.
All right, I'm asking YouTubers and all of you guys, anything you want to talk about in the last segment, let me know. Kevin Kelly appreciated our discussion. Mick Doohan, Bob, he said, I grew up cheering for Mick. I hope Jack does well.
I did too. Well,
hey, Bob.
Yeah.
Well, I remember, what was the... I'm going to reach out to that guy from Aston. What was his last name?
Adrian Atkinson.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I just wanted to remind him about Jack for Tuesday.
Okay.
I've just seen Jack. He's just walked past me in the paddock.
Are you going to do Tuesday, Chris?
Yep, I'll be here covering the test.
That's what we should talk about.
Well, then, obviously, to be honest, I don't know why I'm getting involved. I'm not getting involved. Just obviously, I just happened to meet somebody from Aston Martin and said, "Hey, can we get Jack?" But you're on the case.
I'm George Russell, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. I'm going to run down today's qualifying finishing order for everybody. If you may be in the car, you hadn't heard, Lando Norris on pole, his teammate, Oscar Piastri, putting them in a fantastic position for tomorrow's for tomorrow's race to try to wrap up the Constructors' Championship. Carlos Sainz in third, followed by Nico Hulkenberg, Max Verstappen, Pierre Gasly, George Russell, Fernando Alonso, Valtteri Bottas, and Checo Perez round out the top 10. And then Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson, Lance Stroll, Charles Leclerc down in 14th after a lap time deleted. And he, no telling where he'll be starting. We'll have to see. Kevin Magnussen, 15th. Albon, 16th. Zhou Guan Yu, 17th. Lewis Hamilton, lap time deleted also in turn 1. And Colapinto and Jack Doohan down in 20th. And speaking of Colapinto and Jack Doohan, we have the postseason test coming up on Tuesday. And during the break, we were just talking about that a little bit. And Chris, you're going to be there. But we have a really there's some very interesting people that are going to be in this, Chris, right?
Yeah, big time. We're going to have a lot of fun here. We're going to have Carlos Sainz in the Williams for the first time. Nico Hulkenberg will be driving the Sauber for the first time. Esteban Ocon will therefore be in the Haas. Alongside Rio Hirakawa, actually, rather than Ollie Behrman, because Behrman doesn't count as a rookie anymore. Jack Crawford's going to be running for Aston Martin. I'm trying to think where else we're going to get some movement. Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes as well. Pato O'Ward, I believe, should be driving for McLaren. So there's, lots of interesting names because each team will run both of their cars, essentially as they've done for this race weekend. But one has to be for a rookie driver or by rookie, someone who has started more than 2 Grand Prix, which is why Behrman, now having started 3, is ineligible for that. And they also can run one of their race drivers in the other car, but the other car will be doing tyre testing for 2025. So it's still useful, but it's not a completely free test for them in that sense.
Well, Chris, seems like a glaring omission in this lineup, and that is Lewis Hamilton not being able to jump in a Ferrari. There's a complex thing, but give us a rundown why that's not happening.
Yeah, so Lewis did actually speak to Mercedes about it, just raised it. One, he doesn't normally like to test, so he wouldn't have been lined up to do testing for Mercedes themselves anyway. Usually he'd be like, no, it's okay, others can do that. But the fact that he was leaving means you wouldn't do the test for next year's tyres in that car because you're going to learn things for next year. Ferrari would have liked to put him in, but Lewis, every contract runs until the 31st of December. So Lewis is contracted as a Mercedes driver. Maybe they would have been open to it, just to amicably ending their partnership to let him drive that car. But sponsor-wise, with crossovers and ties with Ferrari and ties with Mercedes, which sponsors he would therefore be representing, where he's actually being paid by another team, would be difficult. And Mercedes had lined up that he goes to the current Mercedes title sponsor, Petronas, in Kuala Lumpur. Because they knew he wouldn't be testing for them because he doesn't really do testing anyway, and it's the end of the season. So instead of saying to your title sponsor, no, you can't have the most famous Formula One driver that's probably ever lived because we're letting him go to a rival team and start work there early, even though they're not paying for him. Instead, they've gone, no, we're going to honour that. And Lewis was understanding of that. He didn't kick off at all. But that was, there was a brief question asked. It was like, could we? And it's like, no, okay. Thought not. So that's kind of how it ended.
Well, Ferrari needs time to clean the red carpet before they roll it out for Lewis next year. So, it's all the same. And 2 quick notes before we go. Congratulations to Max Verstappen and Julia Piquet, who announced they're going to be parents. And congratulations to ex-Marussia sporting director Graham Loudon, who's been named team principal for the new Cadillac F1 project.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Chris, how well do you know Graham?
I know him very well, actually. I've been chatting to him yesterday morning about the new gig. I've been chatting to him a lot about that project. So he is someone who has really helped, I would say, guide when I've been talking about what's happening with GM and Cadillac and Andretti. And I know sometimes people think I'm maybe being a bit negative or anti the project, but it's generally founded in what I'm being told from both sides, not just Formula One side. So I had a chat with him yesterday, but he's saying that he starts work on Monday. And the reason he's saying that is so that he doesn't have to do a shed load of interviews this weekend. So he's like,
what load?
Shed load.
Yes, he's a veteran.
No, shed load. And the other thing, you throw me now, John, rude. The other point, though, was that because they're still technically in the FIA entry process and they don't have a confirmed entry, they haven't been given it yet, they're meant to be keeping quiet, essentially. They're not meant to be talking about it too much. So to come out and do interviews as the new team principal of an F1 team that has not yet got an entry might not reflect so well. So he's like, he's willing to chat, but not willing to come on air just yet. But we will certainly be chatting to him a lot, I think, next year on our shows because, he's got a great job on his hands.
We need to get our buddy Dave O'Neill on the line because Dave knows Graham Loudon very well, worked with him at Marussia.
Yeah, Dave gave him a thumbs up when I texted him asking him about him. So yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we should get Dave on the show. Although Dave, he's got this other little gig besides running a multi-million-dollar race shop. He's team principal of an IndyCar team. I don't know why
he's just taken on David Brown as well.
Has he really? David Brown, the
F1 engineer.
Yeah, Nigel Mansell,
Senna's old engineer.
Williams. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Used to work together at Jordan together.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we haven't talked about the George Russell Max Verstappen spat.
Oh, it's round 5, and Verstappen's up by two uppercuts.
Yeah. I don't know. You can call it a fight. I call it a hair pulling. And now the team principals are involved too. Come on, guys.
I know. With Toto Wolff calling Christian Horner a terrier, and oh my gosh, it really does seem silly, doesn't it?
Well, I will say this. I'm okay with it. I'll giggle and all that kind of stuff. But when George says, Max Verstappen said, "I'll put you in the fence," that's where I draw the line. As soon as race drivers start thinking they can use their equipment as a weapon, somebody's got to get sat down in the race director's office and say, look, any hint of that. And remember Michael Schumacher running into Jacques Villeneuve in 97?
7, yep.
Yeah, 1997 at Jerez in Spain. And, you can find yourself without a championship point for the entire season.
Yeah, and I know I've said this a million times, but it just doesn't bode well for the rest of single-seater motor racing. Absolutely. When the top proponents are acting this way.
Yes, think of the kids.
Think of the kids. It's true. I did like Hinchcliffe's take on it on today's show. He's like, yeah, you can scream and yell and you fight it out, then you drink it out, and then you move on. And he said, carrying a grudge for multiple races throughout the season is just exhausting.
And dangerous.
Yeah. And to Bob's point, I mean, yeah, that is the ultimate point, Bob. You can't, and I kind of believe that he said that. He came out and said, no, George is exaggerating those comments. And then, of course, Horner said, George Russell is hysterical, which I don't think he meant in the funny term either. I think he meant hysterics is the word he used, actually. So, but yeah, good point, Bob. Chris, any comments on that?
None on that, actually. I was just reading some quotes from Toto Wolff, though, that's not related to that, but to the other driver, Lewis Hamilton, and him saying that he can only apologize to Lewis and really taking all of the blame for what happened today on the team. And we don't always get this same approach from Toto, but he's really quite down about it, that he said, he was the quicker of the two drivers on a setup that's focused on next year. And Lewis is actually helping the team still for its future. And then the team screwed up with the timing of getting the cars out. And it was just a huge mess that was all of the teams making. And he said he feels really bad about it and that they've let him down. So, some real honest takes from Toto Wolff there to say that it was all Mercedes' fault that Lewis ended up out in Q1.
Yeah,
well, don't forget the Bollard incident. Kevin Magnussen knocks over a Bollard. Lewis runs over it. That's just plain bad luck.
Didn't just run over it. He got it stuck under the very front of the car where it's aerodynamically a horrible spot.
At least it wasn't a mirror.
Hey.
Well, guys, we are out of time. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Of course, tomorrow morning, we're going to get started bright and early, 7 a.m. Eastern time. I love it. That's proper Formula One for me. First thing in the morning, coffee brewing. Join us. Thanks, Bob Varsha. Thanks, Chris Medland, Jonathan Green. Thanks to Casey back in the studio. And yes, we will talk to all of you tomorrow morning.